So today I'm going to show you how we can take one simple idea and trick Ableton into writing the rest of the song for us without us having to do any additional composition. And I know that sounds like cheating because technically it is, but I prefer to think of this more as collaborating on a track with machines. My name is Dom, welcome to Tech Talk. So in music production, there's so much information we need to learn about the science and the technology side of things. And then there's all these creative obstacles that we need to overcome too. So it's understandable why so many people get frustrated and give up. So these videos are designed to add a bit of a boost to your creative confidence and hopefully inspire you to develop some new ideas organically and add some complexity to your musical arrangements. So I've been making music for 20 years now, and I've developed a vast compendium of creative techniques, creative skills, creative workflows, which I'm giving to you. Some of these are ideal for beginners, some of these are more suited for advanced producers struggling with creative block, and some of these are more left field concepts for the more adventurous amongst you if you're willing to get weird. But for today, I'm just going to keep it very, very simple. So let's just crack on. So this is a really simple but powerful creative tool and an effective way to get some mileage out of just one idea. And if you want to follow along at home, all you need is a bass line, a key, and most importantly, a scale. Now, if you're unfamiliar with music theory, don't worry, because we are going to be cheating, as I said, and getting Ableton to do all the hard work for us. So here are the basic beginnings of a track that I've put together. It's very simple, drums and a bass line. Let's just listen to the drums. Very simple house beat. Feel free to make whatever genre you want. This works across all platforms. And then we have a bass, and let's just hear what that sounds like. And if we look at the notes, it's just C, C1, so we know the key of this song is in C. And we also have another bass line here. If you look at that, it's an extension of our first one. So it's C, G sharp, A sharp. So we know that's a C minor. So I've got my bass line, I've got my key, and I've got my scale. Now, I could do with some chords. And I could spend 30 minutes sat at the keyboard writing, composing some chords, or I could just spend 30 seconds and get Ableton to do that for me. So first things first, we're going to need a new MIDI track. So right click, insert MIDI track. And I'm not even going to create a clip, that's how stubborn I'm going to be about this. I'm just going to receive the MIDI information from our bass channel. So if I select MIDI from, we're just going to select bass and monitoring in. So if I press play on this bass clip now, we can see there's now MIDI data being received. And there's no sound because we need to add an instrument, and for this I'm going to add a piano. So if I press play, now the piano is just repeating the bass line. And that's not what I want from this. It's too low, so let's have a look in MIDI effects, in categories. Now for me personally, the MIDI effects are Ableton's secret weapon. 9 times out of 10, if you have a creative issue, MIDI effects will have the solution. Now, most of you are familiar with arpeggiator, but today we're going to look at chord, scale, and pitch. So I'm going to grab pitch, and I'm going to pop it into grand piano. So pitch simply transposes your notes, your MIDI notes. Now I know the bass line is a C1, therefore this grand piano is also going to play the same note. So if I boost by 12, that C1 is going to be a C2 on the grand piano. But I want it to be 2 octaves higher, or let's go for a C3, so 12 plus 12, 24. And we've created a higher pitch lead effectively. So we're now going to put chord after the pitch. So chord is really useful. It allows us to layer an additional 6 notes on top of whatever note we are triggering. So in total, we can have a 7-note chord. I'm only going to keep it to 3 notes today. So if I were to press play and add 1, we're getting C1, so it's 1 semitone above the C. So a D. And 3 semitones gives us a D sharp, so that's a third in terms of the C minor scale. So now we have the original C3 note playing and this additional D sharp. So let's add another one. Let's add semi-semitones because I know that will give us a G, and that's our dominant. So without the chord and with. So that bass line is just generating this rhythmic little chord pattern. Now, we also have this second bass line here. Let's see what happens when we play some movement. So I don't know about you, but I can definitely hear some kind of discordance in those last 2 chords. So yeah, our root notes are in C minor. However, these 2 additional notes generated by the chord effect, it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be in our scale, because that's just numerical and it's just a chord shape. So if we look at the G sharp and count +3, 1, 2, 3, that gives us a B, and that definitely isn't in scale. 4, 5, 6, 7, D sharp, that's fine. A sharp, 1, 2, 3, C sharp, not in scale. 4, 5, 6, 7, F, that's fine. So these 2 chords is definitely, they've broken out of scale and they've become not fully atonal, but they are discordant. So this is similar to what happens when you sample a piano chord. If you've heard any house music from the 90s, you'll be familiar with this discordant atonal quality. However, we're working in MIDI, so there's no excuse not to fine-tune these notes and correct them and make them more musical. So this leads us to the scale effect. And in the preset folder, we have C minor already prepared. So let's just drag that onto grand piano. And we need to make sure that is at the end of the MIDI chain. The C minor scale effect will act as a safety net, and this analyzes all the MIDI notes being played and reassigns any note that falls out of scale, and will correct it to the nearest correct pitch. So in theory, you could play a keyboard with boxing gloves and you'll still be making musical sense. So now with all those bum notes corrected, it should sound like... And I'm going to turn off the scale so you can hear what it used to sound like. And again. So you can definitely hear a massive difference from those discordant notes being corrected. So now our chord progression feels a lot more musical and a lot more pleasing to listen to. So I'm just going to play it one more time without and with. Now I don't want a piano on this track. It's outlived its purpose. I know this chain is now working as it should, so I'm going to give it a cosmetic makeover. So I'm going to swap the piano for, let's swap it with Serum. There we are. So what does that sound like? Okay, so we have a bass line that is generating its own rhythmic chord progression. But I'm not going to stop there. I'm going to create a lead. So let's do the whole process again. Let's right-click, new MIDI track. And if you are unfamiliar with routing, don't worry, I'm going to do it again. So let's go to MIDI from. We're going to route in the bass. And we're going to set monitoring to in. So we can see the lights are flashing. We know it's working. And this one clip is now triggering all that information and sending it into these 2 additional tracks. And I might use Serum again. This time I'm just going to use a preset. Leads. Ooh, epic lead. That sounds like it might be okay. Turn that down. Let's see what that sounds like. Too low. Let's boost it by another 3. That should give us another 2 should give us a C4. And don't forget, you can use whatever instrument you want. I'm just using Serum for the sake of ease. Let's go to MIDI Effects again. We're going to use the C minor scale again. And this time we're just going to use a pitch again. Again, before the C minor scale. So currently, we have a higher pitch version of the bass line. It technically, you could call it a lead, but I think that's kind of a cop-out. So if I add 3 to the pitch, that means we're now going to transpose the entire lead from C to D sharp. 1, 2, 3. So we've got this whole new kind of mood to it now. We're harmonizing on our bass line. And I picked 3 because we used 3 in the chord. And by that same principle, we know 7 semitones will also work. So if I add 7... So we've used +3 third and +7 fifth in our chords already. So it just kind of feels like we're doubling up on the same idea already. We're trying to get more newer, richer, complex ideas. So if I chose +5, that would give us a 4th in a C minor scale. And that should give us a richer, complex harmony that weaves all these newfound elements that we've created. So let's hear what that sounds like. I'll go back to 3. Up to 7. And back to +5. So I'm going to stop here, as we can go too far with this and we can go too weird with this, but I will show you one final thing. If we return to our bass, which we've neglected, if I were to duplicate this first one, let's duplicate 1, 2. We can create any kind of new bass line or chord progression. This is a very common root note progression. We've got our root at C, -4, +3, -2. Let's press play. So if we return to the bass and choose to change the notes that we played in the first place, then of course the rest of the song is going to course correct itself and recompose itself in an organic way, and that's kind of where the magic happens. If I duplicate that one, and let's do another one. Let's do a descending. pattern. And I can just experiment with anything really. Let's play this one. So hopefully that gave you some inspiration and maybe some new ideas, and by all means I want to hear those results. So in the meantime, I will see you soon. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Keep your eyes open for more content from myself, Johnny and Chris. In a bit.